The security checkpoint at Velnar Station hummed with the usual chaos of intergalactic transit. Cargo drones weaving through crowds, translators chirping in a dozen languages, and the ever-present smell of recycled air mixed with alien spices. But today the flow had stopped. All eyes were on the human woman standing at the scanner, and the four massive creatures flanking her like shadows. Arin stood perfectly still, her posture relaxed but alert. She wore the standard jumpsuit of a freight hauler, faded gray with oil stains that told stories of 1,000 repairs in deep space. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and her brown eyes held that particular calmness that came from years of navigating the galaxy's less forgiving corners. The security officer, a Thurian with 6 eyes and bureaucratic, authority radiating from every scale, clicked, his mandibles in agitation. "Ma'am, I need you to explain why these predators are in your custody." The cubs weren't actually cubs, not in the way most species understood the term. Each stood nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, their bodies covered in midnight blue fur that rippled like liquid shadow. Their eyes, all 4 of them per head, glowed with an intelligence that made even the armed guards nervous. These were Catherine, apex predators from a world where the food chain had exactly 1 tier at the top, and everything else was dinner. "They're not in my custody," Arin replied, her voice carrying that infuriating human quality of being simultaneously polite and completely unbothered. "They're with me. There's a difference." "That's not how this works," the Thurian insisted, his translator struggling to convey his exasperation. "The Catherine species is classified as Class 9 dangerous. They require specialized containment, neural suppressors, and a minimum of 3 armed handlers per individual. You have 4 following you around like," he struggled for the word, "like domesticated quadrupeds." Kor, the eldest and largest of the 4, chose that moment to step forward. The movement was liquid, predatory grace compressed into a single step. Every guard in the checkpoint tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Kor simply sat beside Arin, his shoulder level with her hip, and fixed all 4 eyes on the security officer with an expression that might have been amusement. Arin rested her hand on Kor's head, fingers scratching behind the ridge where his secondary eyes sat. The massive predator leaned into her touch, and a sound like distant thunder rumbled from his chest. "You see?" the Thurian said, pointing with a trembling appendage. "That sound? That's a hunting vocalization. The creature is preparing to—" "He's purring," Arin interrupted. "Well, the Catherine equivalent. He does it when he's content." The checkpoint had gone silent. Even the automated announcement seemed to have paused in disbelief. "That's impossible," a Valorian guard muttered, her 3-fingered hand hovering over her plasma rifle. "Catherine don't bond. They don't choose." Arin smiled, and there was something ancient in that expression, something that spoke of humanity's long history of turning the untamable into family. Everyone keeps saying that. The researchers said it. The wildlife authorities said it. The mercenary company that tried to weaponize them definitely said it. She looked down at Kor, who gazed back with an expression of absolute trust. But nobody asked the Catherine what they thought about it. "This is a security risk," the Thurian insisted, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "How did you even—" "When did this start?" Arin shrugged. 3 years ago. I was running salvage in the Kethros Belt, where their homeworld used to orbit before the supernova. Found a derelict research station. One of those illegal genetics labs that thought they could improve an already perfect species. Her expression darkened. The adults were dead. The cubs were starving, locked in cages designed by people who thought terror and pain were valid training methods. The 3 other cubs moved closer to Arin as she spoke, forming a protective circle. Their posture was relaxed, but there was something unmistakably deliberate about their positioning. They weren't guarding her, they were standing with her. "I opened the cages," Arin continued. "Figured they'd run, maybe attack me, maybe just disappear into whatever ship they could find. That's what everyone says Catherine do. Follow instinct, survive, hunt, move on." She looked at each of the cubs in turn, her hand moving to touch each massive head. "Kor here?" He walked right up to me, looked me in the eyes, all 4 of them, and sat down. The others followed his lead. "That's not—" the Thurian started. "That's not how Catherine behave." Arin finished for him. "Yeah, I've heard that a lot." She leaned against Kor, who remained as steady as a mountain. "Here's what I figured out, though. Everyone who studies them, Everyone who tries to control them, they all make the same mistake. They think because Catherine are apex predators, because they're dangerous and powerful that they can't be anything else, that they're just instinct and hunger wrapped in fur and fangs. She gestured to the crowded checkpoint around them. But look at this station. Look at the galaxy. Every species here was a predator once. Humans hunted across savannas with nothing but sharpened stones and stubbornness. The Thurians were ambush predators in jungle canopies. The Valorians ruled frozen mountains. We all came from blood and survival. Her voice softened. And we all learned that surviving together beats surviving alone. Kor made a low sound, and the other three cubs responded in harmony, a chorus of rumbling that resonated through the deck plating. "They don't follow me," Aaron said, meeting the security officer's 6 eyes steadily. "They chose me. The same way I chose them. We're pack family crew. Call it whatever translates best in your language. They stay because they want to. They could leave any time they wanted. 4 Catherine could carve through this entire station if they felt like it, and everybody here knows it." The silence that followed was profound. "So why don't they?" the Valorian guard asked quietly. Aaron smiled again, and this time it was gentle. "Same reason I don't abandon them when authorities tell me I should. Same reason any human doesn't abandon the ones they choose and who choose them back." She looked at Kor, who met her gaze with something that transcended species. Because loyalty isn't about chains or collars or neural suppressors. It's not about following orders or instinct. It's about recognizing someone who sees you, really sees you, and deciding that's worth staying for. The Thurian security officer stared at her for a long moment, then at the 4 massive predators who waited with patient dignity. Finally, he clicked his mandibles in what might have been acceptance or surrender. "Your credentials are in order," he said stiffly. "You're cleared for transit. But please, try not to terrify anyone else today." "Can't make promises," Aaron said cheerfully, collecting her bags. "Come on, boys." The cubs moved as one, flowing around and with her as she walked toward the departure gates. Behind them, the checkpoint slowly returned to life, though conversations would buzz for days about the human and her impossible family. Kor walked beside Aaron, his head level with her shoulder, and if anyone looked closely, they might have seen the human's hand resting on his neck. Not controlling, not commanding. Just touching, just there, because that's what choosing means. And humanity, for all its faults, had always understood one thing. The strongest bonds aren't forged in obedience. They're chosen, freely, by both sides.